It's the Al Travis Show, and I'll tell you, I've mentioned it before, and this is one of those times you get lucky in this business, and you get to talk to some real people who can make a difference, and I've got that today for us. He is Dr. Oz. Yep, that Dr. Oz. We know him now as the CMS Administrator. Thank you for coming, Dr. Oz. I thank you for being here today.
Well, Al, you're very kind. Obviously, luck favors the prepared mind. So by establishing a pretty good foundation of interest in this area, it wasn't hard to get the team to agree to join you. So thanks for having me.
And again, I cannot thank you enough. I want to throw some stuff out if I can. You tell me how far off I am, because I didn't know this. I guess you think about it, but you don't know it. So I look it up. CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, you're running that organization. That runs all kinds of stuff. You literally touch 160 million Americans in all the programs that you're running. Sir, I think there's only 320 total. That's like half. I mean, I'm a math guy, but holy Hannah.
Well, you mentioned it half. 53% of all children in America get their insurance from Medicaid or the CHIP programs. We run those. Obviously, all seniors over the age of 65 pretty much have Medicare. There's about 10% of people below 65 in the Medicare pool as well. So we cover everybody. But the thing about these beautiful social safety net programs, they're really the jewels in our crown when we think about a great society. As you walk into the entranceway of our building in Washington, which is, by the way, it was built during the brutalist architectural period, because it's brutally. However, it's named after a fascinating man that you will know, Hubert Humphrey.
Yeah.
Hubert Humphrey's got a quote in the foyer of the building, and he says it's the moral obligation of government, the moral obligation to take care of those at the dawn of their life, the children, those in the twilight of their life, the elderly, and those living in the shadows. Now, coming from Minnesota, he'd probably seen that when you have people in the shadows in Minnesota, they don't do so well, right? It's cold.
Yeah, it is cold.
And that's why there's a sort of a social safety net system designed to deal with those crises. The perversion of Medicaid in particular, and when it was created 60 years ago, it never crossed anybody's mind that you would take care of anyone outside of the people Hubert Humphrey, a Democrat, thought should be in the program, right? The young, the old, and those who are disabled or vulnerable. And so if you take those programs, they're precious programs, and you destroy them by expanding them to everybody so that no one is considered vulnerable, we are all vulnerable, then you end up hurting the people for who you were supposed to care. Listen, Al, we are great people. And great people takes care of its most vulnerable, so we're going to do just that. But sometimes to take care of your most vulnerable, you've got to get tough and take out the fraudsters and other abuses that happen to the system that are outside of fraud, which we touch on both of those issues, that weaken the system, the social safety net, so it no longer functions.
Well, see, I 100% with you, Doctor. Here's the thing. I think if I talk to everyone I know, my left-wing friends, my right-wing friends, we would all agree that if you can't make it, we want to help. Whether it's disabilities, bad luck, a health issue, my friends want to help out, right? That's who we are. But what's going on in Minnesota I'd say it's even survived about 2018 now, is this idea that the money that my friends and I send in, because the government takes it from us, is absolutely walking out the back door, not doing what it's supposed to do for the people we want to help. And then for some reason, it never stops, and it only builds. I would throw out one to you. I know we'll talk about a couple of them. There's this housing stabilization thing going on in Minnesota. Started at $2.6 million. Okay, we want to help folks find housing. I don't think any of my friends cared. 4 years later, it's $104 million, and we think it all walked out the door. How does that happen, sir? And maybe you can help me from the top on down. This is money coming from the federal government, right? Comes in here. Minnesota says, we got a thing. And then the money walks out the door. How does that work?
Well, let's take a step back. Why is Health and Human Services, that's already got a ton to do, $1.75 trillion budget, 160 million to take care of, why am I pretending I'm HUD and housing? Right? Isn't that the first question you say? Why? So here's what happens. You're in the hospital, you're homeless, you have no place to go. If we keep you in the hospital, it's expensive. So there are programs by thoughtful people saying, listen, we'll create a short-term housing bridge. We'll get you out of the hospital into some place to live. And if you could just, stay there for a little while, at least we have an excuse to discharge you from the hospital, and hopefully you'll get more permanent housing. It seems like a small tiny thing. How many people are homeless in a hospital that need a little bridge, a place to stay,
Yeah.
right? We'd all sort of high five your, as you point out, folks to the left, folks to the right, you'd all say, yeah, 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 yeah. So what happened with the housing situation actually started before with COVID, because when COVID started, they gave out these large grants for food for kids.
Yep.
Scrupulous people realized nobody was watching the bank. So they could go in there and steal that money. Those same people, once they realize they can use the government as a piggy bank, they start to say, well, geez, what about other things like housing, temporary housing? No one's watching that. And that's why when you ask the folks at CMS, and again, we have people on the left and the right, they think this is the largest scam of its type ever. And abject dereliction of duty, because if you don't watch where the money is going, then unscrupulous people know that and they start to broaden it. So this started off, and I'll just put some names on this, because most of the indictments are on Somalians right now. As Somalian folks figured this out first with COVID, loosening of rules, and throwing money at problems, which unfortunately, when you throw money at problems, people will take the money. So
Yes.
we began to realize they could make a little money here and there on this housing issue. Once you get away with it, it emboldens you. They start to get more aggressive, and then they weaponize it. Now, this is where I think cultural issues play in. If no one is willing to go after you because they're shy about pointing out that you seem to come from one ethnic group or one background, that you don't want to be seen as a legislator or a governor, God forbid, you're only seen as being racist or harsh in any way. So you don't do what a true leader does, which is to make the difficult decisions, right? We can all give money away. It's very easy to do things that everyone wants you to do, but things that are popular are not always right, and things that are right are not always popular. So what I'm being forced to do now in Minnesota is to take aggressive stances against a group of people, some of whom actually need housing. Most of them don't seem to, because as you point out, you don't go from an expected budget of $2.6 million to $100 million. That's impossible. But there's even worse stories. That program, by the way, we have now shuttered.
Yes.
And so nobody gets it. The people who were supposed to get that program do no longer have access.
Why aren't people mad at that, doctor? Here's the point. There were some people, like you say, a guy in the hospital need a bridge, and we're not going to help that cat now because we're stopping the whole thing. And I get it. You got to stop it. But here's what if I could go one step up with you, doctor. And I want to use the autism one. Housing, like you say, may not even be there. We set up a deal for autistic kids, and that program started in 2018. $3 million, going to have people come in and help our autistic kids. Autism seemed to be up. You're a doctor. The numbers seem to say it is.
Yep.
By 2024, it's at $400 million, sir. And so we look into it. You could declare yourself an autism center. You didn't have to have a license. I don't have to be a teacher. I don't have to be a medical professional. My kid doesn't even have to have a diagnosis from a doctor that he's got autism. You just set it up. Get parents to say, hey, take my kid. We call it autism. They do kickbacks to him and say, thanks for your kid. We'll give you $500. Send the name into the government and we pay it. Here's my point. When Minnesota proposed that silliness, somebody had to okay it. And now this is the administration before you, but who looked at that and said, well, that makes sense. Goodness gracious. And no top dollar on it. No, we'll stop at $4 million. How does that start at the top with CMS to say, makes sense to me?
And actually the top is not CMS, the top's the White House. When the White House tells you, we never want to hear about a problem in healthcare. We don't want you to do anything that ruffles the feathers of people who might see your action as being harsh on poor people or racist in nature, or you're being too difficult with the states. We don't want to hear anything. And so what ends up happening is no decisions are made. So I come into an agency. Again, I've got folks on the left and the right in the agency. Sure. The most important thing I kept hearing was, we want to do our jobs. Like, we didn't give up high-paying jobs in the private sector to come in the government, just sit around in our hands. Let us do our jobs. So I told folks, my goal is not just to get more people on insurance if they don't exist, or give away money to people who don't need it. My job is to do the right thing. By the way, this has to do with negotiating tough on everybody. You negotiate with states. That's what the One Big Beautiful Bill was about. Fundamentally, it was about aligning governors with the federal government. If the president and the governors have different ways of keeping score about who they're paying expenses for in healthcare, they're going to obviously pervert the system. What we had until the One Big Beautiful Bill passed was just that. In Minnesota, you were supported. It was actually almost an additional investment the state could make in hospitals, but only with federal dollars. And I'm only pointing this out because once you develop a culture of corruption, the whole
Yeah,
neighborhood goes down the tubes. And so
absolutely.
what we have seen over the last 5 years, and COVID was the excuse, but
Yep.
no one cared about anything but seeming like they were doing the right thing. I'm a surgeon. I don't want to seem like I'm doing the right thing. I want to actually save your life. If I pretend to say, listen, you look great, it's not safe.
I love that. I don't want to interrupt you, but I've got to go to break real quick if we can. We'll be right back, and what I'd like to do is find out for you some of the numbers. Our biggest organization here, newspaper, wants to argue with what kind of numbers is really not as bad as we all want to think. And I think you're going to tell me that's not true, and then I want to find out who can and cannot be held accountable. I've got him. He's Dr. Oz on the Al Travis Show. We've got him, Dr. Oz, on the Al Travis Show. Yeah, that Dr. Oz. He's here talking all things with us about the federal government coming here and taking a look specifically at Minnesota and the fraud that we have. The biggest newspaper in the state, sir, literally came out, really probably isn't that bad. Trump says it's $1 billion. It may not get to 800 million. For heaven's sakes, look away. Sir, the U.S. Attorney, Joe Thompson, he's saying it's going to be well over that. We're going to blow past $1 billion in all the fraud. Do you have an idea, a legitimate number that we could say, you know, we're going to shoot that for sure, don't worry about it? And then my second question will be, how high up is someone held accountable? Obviously, you're going to take the fraudsters if we can catch them and throw the book at them. I'm fine with that. But is there any culpability in the state government up that just handed out that cash? Your thoughts, sir. Give it to you.
I'm quite confident we're going to surpass $1 billion. But to your point, if for some reason the U.S. Attorney, me, others are wrong, and it's $800 million, I mean, at what point do you say you stole money from our most vulnerable? It's a dereliction of duty, and you got to pay a price. Which brings me to the issue of where it's going to stop. There's no question in my mind that there'll be folks high in the administration of Governor Walz, maybe even the governor, who are going to be involved in harsh evaluations of what happened, because there were warnings given by this Department of Health in Minnesota that there was issues here. And now we're seeing, by the way, other states. Yesterday, there was a report from Maine. Again, similar type of scenario where a whistleblower said, I tried over and over and over again. Now, much smaller scale, fewer people, that didn't start as early. But in Minnesota, we know that during the summer of 24, there were people shouting for help. And again, your governor was running for vice president, wasn't running the state. And that led to decisions made, we believe, that may have been, again, it may have been political patronage, but it was a way, the worst type, because you're letting people get hurt in the middle of all this. And I want to come back to that point. The response from some will be, oh, you know, it's not that much money. We waste a lot of money. You have to stop it somewhere. At some point, you have to say, we are no longer going to tolerate that. And here's one of the biggest problems we have with fraud in healthcare. Remember, massive agency that I run, $1.75 billion. There are foreign governments trying to hack into our systems because there's so much money there. The pathology here is that if we are unable to protect this shining jewel, the crown jewel of our social safety net program, it'll get taken advantage of continually. So I'll give you a couple of other examples. In South Florida, we have more durable medical equipment supply, wheelchairs, fully catheters. We have more ME suppliers than McDonald's by a factor of 5. Now, we think the Cuban government might be involved in that. We have Armenian mafia gangs in Southern California who are taking advantage of hospice and home health. They're destroying not just the program there, but sucks the money out of all the other parts of the country. We busted a $15 billion Russian multinational criminal organization, but of course, their perpetrators got away. So let me come back to your main question. What's the crime? If you steal money from the healthcare system in America, you'll go to jail for maybe 18 months. The crimes are not tough enough. If you rob a bank and steal $5 million, you're going away for a while. We need to make those rules tougher. But in my agency, and this is direct from the president, I'm more focused on not letting the money out of the door than putting people in jail. My main goal in Minnesota is to make sure no more taxpayer dollar goes to these scams. And we send a very harsh message to all the scammers out there. Don't come into our town, because we're taking you out if you do.
I love that, sir. I read somewhere, and this is what almost scared me. As I understand it, this is a 90-10 deal for Minnesota versus the federal government. And if you look into it and find that we misused, and I'm going to use the $1 billion, is there a chance Minnesotans have to pay that money back to the federal government at that 90-10 split, and I'm back in for another $900 million that's already been frauded out. Is that what Minnesotans are looking at it as far as just a penalty to us for this bad management?
There's all kinds of ways that we might have to penalize Minnesota, but I sent the governor a letter last week, and he has not called back, but the agency has responded saying they understand. We said we want weekly audits of what's happening. We want by the end of this month a corrective action, a plan for what you're going to do, and by the end of January, if you do not shut this stuff down, then it's all on you from then on. So forget about the past. There's a lot of money still going out the door. Take the autism example you gave me, right? You went from $3 million anticipated spending to $400 million a year, right? So now, or it's going to be a year in the future, because that's how fast it's growing. These parents, the unscrupulous parents, are being bribed by these horrible vendors to lie that their children are autistic. If you truly have an autistic child and you're getting a little money to help you in a very difficult situation, you're not going to get that money anymore. And the state's going to keep funds and penalties on the people who took the money out of the kidney. So you're hurting everybody, which is why I'm saying weak leadership is the worst challenge in this system. You're better off making a tough decision, dealing with the heat, and having a few people mad at you than you are giving money to everybody, because you bankrupt the entire system.
I know you're a pro. I'll give you this. I got 2 minutes to go. Last question for you, sir, if I can. With SNAP, which I know there's another organization, Minnesota has said we will not give you the names of the people we send our SNAP benefits to. I don't know how we can get by with that. Federal government pays SNAP. Why can't they know who it is? I ask you this question, sir. Is Human Services in Minnesota giving you the names of everybody that they are doing? Do you have access to that so we can look and see one guy's getting 64 different programs? Is Human Services playing nice with you, unlike the SNAP program here?
Jury is still out. We have given them very specific deliverables. One of those is weekly audits. I don't think Minnesota knows where all the money's going. And that's part of the problem as well. And so if you have if the fraud's gotten so bad and the people who cared about it left or chased out or ostracized, the people left behind either don't care enough about it, don't appreciate how dangerous this is, or don't have the capability of coping with this problem, then you've got folks that are incapable of dealing with the problem. In surgery, and that's my background, you have two kinds of trust. Are you capable to do the operation, and will you do the right operation? I've got the same question, the challenge from Minnesota. Should I trust you if you're in the Department of Health and Human Services? Should I trust you if you're working with Governor Walz? Should I trust Governor Walz? Is he capable of doing the right thing, and will he do the right thing? And that's the ultimate challenge we should all be asking.
It is a tough one, sir. I cannot thank you. Your people, Taylor, was wonderful to set this up and you to take the time out to be with us this morning. I can't tell you. I love that you're here, and I'm going to open the invitation anytime you want to come up and catch us up. We're at whatever you're finding out of in January. The door is wide open. I'll make it work. I appreciate you, sir.
God bless you and your beautiful wife.
All right. Thank you. Steph will appreciate that. I've got him. Dr. Oz on the Al Travis Show. More right after this.
I'll take care. I'm going to run.